Okay, I want everyone listening to do something for me right now.
Okay.
Unless you're driving, in which case, please keep your eyes on the road. But if you can, I want you to just close your eyes for a second. I want to conjure up a mental image.
That's a very specific image you're going for, isn't it?
It is. I want you to picture a rabbit, just a standard white, fluffy rabbit.
Got it.
The kind you might see at a petting zoo or maybe, pulling out of a magician's hat. It's got the twitchy nose, the long ears, the cotton ball tail. You got it.
I'm picturing it. Very cute. Very innocent.
Right. Now, in your mind, I want you to turn off the lights, plunge the scene into pitch black.
Okay.
And then I want you to flip on a blue light switch. And suddenly, that white fluff, it isn't white anymore. It's glowing.
Glowing how?
It is radiating a fluorescent, almost toxic green light. And I don't mean a faint shimmer like a glow-in-the-dark star you'd put on a ceiling. I mean, it looks like a biological neon sign.
Wow. That's a jarring image. It feels deeply unnatural.
It does. But here's the kicker. This isn't science fiction, and it's not a hallucination. This is Alba.
Alba. Yeah, Alba is really the perfect entry point for what we're digging into today. She was a real rabbit, created way back in the year 2000 by a Brazilian bioartist named Eduardo Kac.
A bioartist.
Right. And the reason she glowed wasn't because she was painted or dyed or anything superficial. It was because every single cell in her body contained a specific piece of code.
Piece of code that didn't belong to a rabbit.
Exactly. It was jellyfish DNA.
Jellyfish DNA.
French scientists took a plain old white rabbit embryo and they injected it with a gene from a green fluorescent jellyfish. And voila, you get a glow-in-the-dark bunny.
That is just wild.
It is. Now, Alba caused a massive stir in the art world and the ethics world at the time. I mean, people were freaking out. But for our purposes today, she represents something much, much bigger than just a controversial art project.
She's like a mascot for something.
She is. She is the mascot for a fundamental shift in the entire history of life on Earth.
And that is what we are unpacking today. We are looking at Chapter 20 and the afterword of Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens. And the thesis here is, well, it's heavy. It's not just cool science facts. It's an argument that the rules of the game of life itself, are changing for the first time in 4 billion years.
That's the scale we're operating on.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. For 4 billion years, give or take, life on this planet has been governed by one ironclad set of laws: natural selection.
Right.
Whether you are a single-celled amoeba, a T-Rex, or a human being, you evolved based on who survived and who reproduced. There was no plan. There was no architect.
And now, with Alba and the other examples we're going to get into, we are seeing the regime change. We are moving from the era of natural selection to the era of intelligent design.
Yes. And we need to be super clear for the listener here. When we say intelligent design, we aren't getting theological. We are not talking about a god in the clouds.
No.
We are talking about us. We are the designers. The argument Harari makes, and the evidence really does support it, is that Homo sapiens is currently in the process of breaking the biological limits that have constrained life since the primordial soup.
We're transcending our biology.
We are. And the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about making glow-in-the-dark pets or faster computers. This is potentially about the end of Homo sapiens as a biological definition.
The end of Homo sapiens. That sounds terrifying. It sounds like a movie trailer where the screen fades to black and you just hear an explosion. Are we talking about an apocalypse here?
And that's the common reaction, right? We immediately think of the Terminator or some kind of, killer plague. But that's almost a distraction.
A distraction from what?
From the real possibility. We aren't necessarily talking about a violent extinction event. We're talking about a transformation, a change so radical that whatever comes out the other side might not be human in the way you or I understand that word today.
I see.
So in this deep dive, we're going to explore the 3 specific avenues where this intelligent design is really taking over: biological engineering, cyborg engineering, and then the engineering of inorganic life.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this, because I think for most of us, evolution is this abstract concept. It's a chapter in a high school textbook with, pictures of finches and fossils. It's slow, it's dusty, and it happens to other things, not us. But you're saying we are actively kicking evolution to the curb.
Precisely. To really grasp how big of a deal this is, we have to appreciate the old way.
Yeah.
The 4 billion-year-old regime of natural selection.
Right. The old rule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's take the giraffe. It's the classic example. How did the giraffe get its long neck?
Okay, pop quiz. The standard explanation is Competition. You had some proto-giraffes on the savanna, some had short necks, some had slightly longer necks, just due to random mutations, right?
Exactly. Random genetic variants, just like some people are taller than others.
So the ones with the slightly longer necks could reach the juicy leaves at the very top of the acacia trees that the short-necked ones couldn't get to. So they got more calories, they were healthier, they survived droughts better, and most importantly, they had more babies. And those babies inherited the long neck gene, and over millions and millions of years, the short-necked giraffes just died out, and the long-necked ones took over.
Perfect. That is natural selection in a nutshell. But I want you to focus on the agency in that story. Who decided the giraffe should have a long neck?
Nobody. It just happened.
Right. There was no committee of giraffes that sat down and said, you know, the view's better up there. Let's go ahead and extend our vertebrae. And nature itself isn't a person. It doesn't have a plan. It was a blind process. Random mutation plus environmental pressure equals evolution. It's slow and it's completely undirected.
Okay. So that's the baseline.
That's the baseline. Now let's fast forward. About 10,000 years ago, we get the agricultural revolution. Humans start interfering. We start breeding chickens.
We wanted dinner. We wanted fat, slow chickens that were easy to catch and, delicious to eat.
Of course.
So farmers would pick the fattest hens and the slowest roosters and just breed them together, generation after generation.
And that was the first real crack in the regime of natural selection. We call it selective breeding or artificial selection. But, and this is the crucial distinction, we were still playing by nature's rules.
What do you mean? We were choosing who bred?
We were, but we were essentially just hacking the existing system, not building a new one from scratch. We could only select for traits that already existed somewhere in the chicken's gene pool.
Ah, I see.
We could accelerate the process, making a chicken fatter in a few generations rather than a million years. But we were limited. We couldn't take a gene from, say, a tomato and put it into a chicken.
We were still bound by the biological playing field.
Exactly. We are like bees selecting the brightest flowers to pollinate. We were influencing the direction, but we weren't designing the engine.
Yeah.
If the gene for, I don't know, glowing in the dark wasn't in the species gene pool, we couldn't create it.
And that brings us right back to Alba the rabbit. That is the line in the sand.
It is.
You can breed rabbits for 1 billion years. You can select the whitest ones, the fluffiest ones, the fastest ones, but you will never, ever get one that glows green like a jellyfish because that gene simply isn't in the rabbit library of parts.
Correct. That is the moment we stepped out of the role of the selector and into the role of the creator. We broke the species barrier. We stopped just reading the book of life, and we started writing in the margins. And if you want a visual that is perhaps even more shocking than the glowing rabbit,
I saw this in the source notes.
we have to talk about the ear mouse.
Oh man, the ear mouse. I looked at this image for a long time. It is, well, it's grotesque, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's also completely fascinating.
Describe it for the listener.
It's a white lab mouse, totally normal-looking face and body, but on its back, literally growing out of its skin, is a structure that looks exactly like a human ear. Cartilage, skin, the whole shape.
It's an incredibly eerie image. And I have to clarify, for everyone listening, this is not Photoshop. This is not some AI-generated art. This is real science from back in the late 90s.
So how did they do it?
Scientists implanted cattle cartilage cells, not even human cells, onto the back of an immunocompromised mouse and used a biodegradable ear-shaped mold to guide the growth. The mouse's body grew the skin over it. It's a chimera.
A chimera. That word usually refers to monsters in Greek mythology, right? The lion with a goat's head and a snake's tail.
Exactly. The Lion Man statue from 30,000 years ago or the Sphinx in Egypt.
Yeah.
Humans have always fantasized about mixing species together. We've been dreaming about it since we lived in caves. But for all of human history, it was just storytelling. It was art.
Now
Now we aren't carving it in stone, we're carving it in flesh. We're doing it in the lab.
that is a profound shift. We are making the mythical into biological reality. And this brings us to the first of those 3 massive avenues we mentioned at the top. Biological engineering.
Avenue 1, biological engineering. This is where the action is right now.
So define this for us. Is it just about making weird, glowing pets and mice with ears on their backs?
Not at all. I mean, those are the flashy examples that get on the news and freak people out. But biological engineering is essentially intervening at the biological level, implanting genes, manipulating cells to change an organism's fundamental capabilities.
Yeah.
And the real transformative work is happening in agriculture and medicine.
In ways we might not even notice at the supermarket.
Precisely. It's happening in ways that are fundamentally altering the code of life all around us.
Okay, so give us a taste. What's in the genetically modified supermarket?
Well, let's take the humble potato. It's a staple food for billions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But potatoes are notoriously vulnerable to frost. If a cold snap hits a farm, the crop can be totally wiped out. You lose money, people go hungry.
A huge economic problem.
Huge!
Yeah.
So scientists went gene shopping. They looked for an organism that handles cold really, really well.
And where did they find it?
In the Arctic Ocean, they found an Arctic fish, a type of flounder, that produces a natural antifreeze protein in its blood to survive in freezing ocean water.
It has antifreeze in its veins.
Essentially, yes. So they extracted the gene that codes for that protein and inserted it into the potato's DNA.
Okay, I have to ask the question everyone is thinking. Does that make the potatoes taste fishy?
No fishy taste, no scales, no fins. It's purely functional. It just makes the plant cells more resilient to ice crystals forming. It makes it frost resistant.
But think about the implication there. We took a piece of code from a fish and we ran it on a potato.
And it worked.
That proves that the code is universal. It's like taking a piece of software from a Mac and running it on a PC. It implies that the underlying language of life, DNA, is compatible across everything.
Exactly. DNA is DNA. Once you know how to read and write it, you can copy and paste between species that have been separated by evolution for hundreds of millions of years.
Wow. What else?
Take dairy cows. The dairy industry loses billions of dollars a year on udder infections. It's called mastitis. It's painful for the cows and incredibly expensive for the farmers who have to use antibiotics.
I can imagine.
So there are research projects on genetically engineered cows that produce a biochemical called lysostafin in their own milk. Lysostafin is an enzyme that specifically attacks the Staphylococcus bacteria that causes the infection.
So the cow is essentially its own pharmacy. It's producing its own medicine, right, in the milk.
In a way, yes. It's a self-medicating, infection-resistant cow. And then there are pigs. We all know the health warnings about bacon and bad fats, specifically omega-6 fatty acids. We're told to eat fish for the healthy omega-3s.
Right, the good fats.
Well, there's an experimental line of pigs that have been implanted with genetic material from a tiny worm, a roundworm, C. elegans. And this specific gene they took causes the pigs' bodies to process fat differently. It turns that bad omega-6 fat into a healthy omega-3 fat.
So wait a minute, are you talking about heart-healthy bacon? That sounds like the holy grail of nutrition.
Theoretically, yes. Bacon that is as good for your heart as salmon. But notice the pattern here. We are taking genes from worms, fish, jellyfish, and inserting them into pigs, potatoes, and rabbits. We are treating the genetic code not as some sacred text that can't be touched, but as a grab bag of spare parts.
A library of functions.
Exactly. It's like a biological app store. I want that feature. Let me grab that gene.
It really highlights how malleable life is. But here is where it gets really interesting and, let's be honest, a little scary. We're talking about potatoes and pigs. But humans are made of the same code. If we can edit a pig, we can edit a person.
That is the inevitable slippery slope. There is no biological firewall that protects Homo sapiens. And the source material highlights a fascinating experiment involving voles to show just how close we might be to engineering not just our bodies, but our behavior.
The voles. This was one of my absolute favorite parts of the research. So for the listener who might not know, voles are these little rodents, kind of like stout mice.
Right.
And apparently there are different types of voles with very, very different lifestyles.
That's right. Most vole species are what you call promiscuous. They don't settle down, they mate, they move on. It's a very no-strings-attached kind of society.
Okay.
But there is one specific species, the prairie vole, where the male and female voles form lasting relationships. They are monogamous.
They're the romantics of the rodent world.
You could say that. They pair bond, they stay together to raise the young. And geneticists ask the obvious question, why? What is biologically different about the monogamous vole compared to the promiscuous vole? Is it their upbringing, their culture? Do they listen to different music?
It's not the music.
It is not the music, it's their genes. Scientists managed to isolate the specific genes responsible for the production of vasopressin receptors in the brain. Vasopressin is a hormone linked to social bonding.
So more receptors means more bonding.
Precisely. The monogamous voles had a gene that made their brains more sensitive to it. It felt good to bond.
So here's the million-dollar question. If you take that monogamy gene from the romantic prairie vole and you inject it into the promiscuous vole, what happens? Do you turn a Don Juan into a faithful husband?
Essentially, yes. They tweaked the gene and the behavior changed. The promiscuous voles became pair bonders. They became faithful partners.
That is wild, and it just begs this massive, massive question. If we can do that for a rodent, can we do it for a human?
We share a vast amount of our DNA with rodents. Our hormonal systems, our brain chemistry are very similar in many ways. So theoretically, yes, it's plausible.
I mean, imagine that product launch. Genetic fidelity. Forget marriage counseling. Just get a gene tweak. Honey, you've been looking a little promiscuous lately. Have you taken your gene therapy?
It sounds like a joke, but it points to a profound possibility. We aren't just talking about engineering immunity to diseases or stronger muscles, things that seem purely physical. We are talking about engineering social structures. We're talking about engineering emotions.
Yeah.
If we can isolate a gene for monogamy, can we isolate a gene for loyalty, for aggression, for happiness?
We've already created genius mice, Ro. I read about the Doogie mice named after the old TV show.
We have. Geneticists have created strains of mice with significantly improved memory and learning skills by enhancing a single gene. And we've engineered those worms, C. elegans, that I mentioned before, to live 6 times longer than their natural lifespan.
6 times longer. That's staggering if you apply that scale to a human. I mean, that's a lifespan of 400 or 500 years.
Exactly. Now, scaling it to humans isn't a simple one-to-one translation. Our biology is vastly more complex, but the principle stands. We are tinkering with the fundamental limits of life and death.
And it doesn't stop there.
No. Biological engineering isn't just about tweaking the living, it's also about resurrecting the dead.
Okay, this is straight up Jurassic Park, but with mammals.
It's the de-extinction movement. There are teams right now, Russian, Japanese, Korean, collaborating to map the genome of the woolly mammoth. They have specimens found frozen in the Siberian ice.
Permafrost.
Right. And the freezing preserved some of the DNA, so we can read it. We can reconstruct the genetic code.
And once you have the code, you can build the animal. How does that work?
The plan is to take a fertilized egg cell from a modern elephant, which is the mammoth's closest living relative. You strip out the elephant DNA and you replace it with the reconstructed mammoth DNA. Then you implant that egg back into the surrogate elephant mother.
So 22 months later, the elephant gives birth to a baby mammoth. A creature that hasn't walked the earth for 5,000 years.
That is the goal, and they are making progress. But why stop at mammoths? Professor George Church from Harvard, a real titan in this field, has pointed out that the Neanderthal genome project is complete.
We have the whole thing.
We have the code. We have sequenced the entire Neanderthal genome from fossils. Theoretically, we could do the same thing. Reconstruct Neanderthal DNA and implant it into a sapiens ovum.
A human egg.
And a human woman would carry it to term.
Yeah. Producing the first Neanderthal child in 30,000 years? That's heavy. Why would we do that? I mean, I get the scientific curiosity. It would be the ultimate anthropological experiment. But think about the life of that child.
And that is the ethical minefield. Some argue we have a moral duty to do it because we, Homo sapiens, likely drove them to extinction. So maybe we owe it to them to bring them back.
A kind of genetic reparations.
Others say it would be invaluable to study their brains, to see what biological change produced our consciousness by comparing it to theirs. Maybe they thought differently. Maybe they didn't have language in the same way we do. But there is also a much more cynical view mentioned in the sources.
Which is?
Labor.
Labor. You mean like manual labor?
Think about it. Neanderthals were robust, physically stronger than us, adapted to harsh conditions. A modern industrialist might look at a Neanderthal not as a lost cousin, but as a potential worker. Someone who can do the physical labor of 2 sapiens for the price of 1.
That is incredibly dark, creating a biological subspecies for menial work.
It is. But when you open the door to intelligent design, you open the door to all human motivations: curiosity, altruism, and, yes, greed. And remember, we haven't even touched on designing ourselves yet. If we can make a genius mouse, why not a genius human? If we can make a monogamous vole, why not a faithful human?
It seems inevitable.
The source suggests that in a few decades, we might be able to make far-reaching alterations not just to our physiology, but to our intellectual and emotional capacities.
We could engineer a second cognitive revolution.
Yes. The first cognitive revolution, 70,000 years ago, was an accident of nature that turned us from insignificant apes into masters of the world. A second one, engineered by us, could transform Homo sapiens into something else. Something superhuman.
We could edit out fear. We could edit in the ability to do complex calculus instantly.
It's rewriting the human operating system. Okay, that's Avenue 1, biology. We're hacking the wetware, the genes and cells. But there's another path. Avenue 2, cyborg engineering.
Right.
This is the combination of organic parts with inorganic mechanical parts. merging the biological body with non-biological tech.
And the text makes a cheeky point here that I love. We are already cyborgs.
In a sense, yes. We absolutely are. If you wear glasses, you are using an inorganic device to supplement a biological flaw. Without them, your visual input is compromised.
If you have a pacemaker,
You have a machine regulating your heart, a cochlear implant, a prosthetic limb.
I go even further. My smartphone, I realized this the other day when I left it at home by accident.
Oh, the pan?
Total panic. But it's because it stores my memories in photos, my phone numbers, my maps, my knowledge of the world via the internet. It's an external hard drive for my brain. I feel physically diminished, dumber, and more lost when I don't have it.
Exactly. We are essentially bionic already.
Oh, right.
But the connection is still somewhat loose. You hold the phone, it's not wired directly into your nervous system, you can put it down. Cyborg engineering is about making that connection much more intimate. We were moving from devices outside the body, or strictly medical implants, to devices that modify our abilities and identities directly. The bionic arm is the classic example here.
Tell us about Jesse Sullivan.
Jesse Sullivan was an electrician who lost both of his arms up to the shoulder in a horrific accident back in 2001, a devastating injury. But the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago fitted him with 2 bionic arms.
Okay.
Now, usually, prosthetics are just mechanical claws you have to move with your shoulder muscles. They're clunky, they're not intuitive. But Jesse's were different. They were operated by thought alone.
By thought. So he just thinks lift arm and the arm lifts. How does that even work?
It's incredible science.
Yeah.
The surgeons took the nerves that used to go to his arms, nerves that were still alive and firing in his shoulder stump, and they rerouted them. They grafted them onto his chest muscle.
Onto his chest?
Yes. So when Jesse thinks close hand, his brain sends that signal down those old arm nerves, and a tiny patch of his chest muscle twitches. Electrodes on his chest pick up that specific twitch, send a signal to a microcomputer in the bionic arm, and the mechanical hand closes.
So he just wills it, like, I will my hand to move and the machine obeys.
Yes. And the brain is so plastic, so adaptable, that over time he stopped feeling like he was twitching his chest. He just felt like he was moving his arm again. His brain remapped itself.
That is mind-blowing. And there was a soldier mentioned too, right? Claudia Mitchell.
Yes, she had a similar setup after losing an arm in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
And scientists believe we are on the verge of closing the loop, meaning the arm won't just move, but it will send signals back to the brain. Sensation, touch, pressure, temperature. If Jesse holds his wife's hand, the sensors in the bionic fingers will send an electronic signal to his nerves, and his brain will feel the warmth and texture.
And once you replace the biological arm with a mechanical one, you aren't limited by biology anymore.
That's the critical point. That's the leap from therapy to enhancement. A biological arm has limits. It can break. It gets tired. It can only lift so much. A bionic arm, it can be made of carbon fiber and titanium. It can be as strong as a hydraulic press.
It doesn't get tired.
It can be replaced or upgraded every few years, like a smartphone.
So eventually, having a natural fleshy arm might be seen as a disadvantage. You can imagine a future where people choose to amputate healthy limbs to get the upgrade.
It's a real possibility.
Oh, you still have those weak, fleshy things. I got the tight neck grip installed last week. I can punch through a brick wall.
It's possible, and you can even detach them. This brings us to the concept of remote control life. And for this, we have to talk about the monkeys at Duke University.
Aurora and Edoya, this story is wild.
It really is. Scientists implanted electrodes deeply into the brains of a couple of rhesus monkeys. These electrodes could read the brain signals for movement and transmit them to external devices. Aurora, one of the monkeys, learned to control a detached bionic arm with her mind. But here's the kicker. She did this while simultaneously moving her 2 organic arms.
So she essentially had 3 arms, 2 biological ones attached to her body, and 1 mechanical one sitting across the room, controlled by her mind.
The source compares her to a Hindu goddess. She could be scratching her back with one hand, eating a banana with the other, and controlling this 3rd robotic arm simultaneously.
And the arm doesn't have to be in the same room, or even on the same continent.
And that's Edoya.
Edoya, right.
Edoya was sitting in a lab chair in North Carolina, but she was controlling a pair of bionic legs, huge, heavy, humanoid robot legs that were walking on a treadmill in Kyoto, Japan.
She was walking in Japan while sitting in America?
The internet transmitted her brain signals in real time. The legs in Japan were 20 times her own body weight, yet she moved them with her thoughts. This erases the concept of physical presence.
Yeah, it completely redefines the boundaries of the self. My self is usually defined by my skin, But if I can touch something in Tokyo from my couch in New York, myself just got a lot bigger.
And governments and militaries are obviously watching this very closely. The U.S. military's research wing, DARPA, is developing cyborg insects.
Are bugs.
Literally. Imagine a fly or a cockroach with an electronic chip and tiny cameras implanted in its body. A human operator could control its movement remotely with a joystick.
The ultimate spy. To be a fly on the wall isn't a metaphor anymore.
It's a piece of military hardware. You could fly into enemy headquarters, listen to conversations, transmit the audio and video back. Unless a spider catches it first, of course.
And they're doing these with sharks, too.
Cyborg sharks. The U.S. Navy is working on neural implants for sharks. Sharks have these incredible natural magnetic sensors. They can detect the tiny magnetic fields generated by submarines and ships underwater.
So you use the shark's natural ability.
But you control where it goes. You steer it toward the target. It becomes a living, self-propelled sensor platform.
Weaponized cyborg sharks. We really are living in the future. But there's one more level to this cyborg discussion that I found the most mind-bending of all. The interbrain net.
This is the logical and perhaps terrifying extrapolation. Right now, we are talking about linking a brain to a machine. But what happens if we link a brain to another brain?
Hive mind.
It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. We already have locked-in syndrome patients who can't move or speak, but they use brain electrodes to communicate with computers. They can type with their thoughts.
Right.
So if we can translate brain signals into words on a screen, why not just send those signals directly into someone else's brain?
So instead of me talking to you right now using my mouth to make sound waves that hit your ear and get translated by your brain, I could just download the thought directly from my mind to yours.
Exactly. Telepathy, mediated by technology. But go deeper. It's not just words. What about memory, emotion? Imagine if you could retrieve the memories of another person. Not just hear a story about their childhood, but remember it as if it happened to you.
That is terrifying and fascinating at the same time. If I can remember your memories and you can remember mine, where do I end and you begin?
Exactly. What happens to gender identity if memories and experiences are shared? What happens to personal dreams? If the mind becomes collective, the individual self, which is the cornerstone of Western philosophy, democracy, and human rights, it might just dissolve.
It would be a fundamental change in what it means to be human.
We wouldn't just be upgraded humans. We would be a different kind of entity entirely. We wouldn't be individuals in the same way.
It's like the Borg from Star Trek, but real.
And likely much more complex and subtle. It would change how we experience reality itself. If I can access the collective knowledge of the entire species instantly, do I need to learn anything? Do I have my opinions or just the hive's opinions?
That's a deep question. Okay, so we've covered biological engineering, changing the genes, and cyborg engineering, merging with machines. That leaves Avenue 3, inorganic life.
This is the realm where biology is left behind entirely. Beings with no organic parts at all. Living code.
We're talking about AI computer programs. But the source makes a very interesting distinction here about evolution in code. Because usually we think of a programmer writing code. It doesn't write itself.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
But we are moving toward what's called genetic programming. Think about a computer virus. This is a program designed to do one thing, replicate itself. It spreads through the internet, jumping from computer to computer.
And it's chased by antivirus software.
Right, which acts like a digital predator. So you have a digital ecosystem, predator and prey.
Okay.
And sometimes, when the virus replicates, an error occurs, a mutation. Maybe the programmer made it capable of random changes, or maybe it's just a cosmic ray hitting a server, a glitch. But if that modified virus, that mutant, is better at hiding from the antivirus software, it survives, it replicates. The old version gets deleted.
That is literally evolution. Survival of the fittest, but for code.
It fits the definition perfectly. It reproduces, it mutates, it competes for survival and resources, in this case processing power and memory. So the philosophical question is it alive?
Yep.
It's purely digital, existing only on silicon and fiber optics, but it evolves. It doesn't need carbon. It doesn't need water. It thrives in the data stream.
And this leads us to the ultimate goal of inorganic engineering, the Blue Brain Project.
This is a massive real-world initiative funded by the European Union with a €1 billion grant. The stated goal is to recreate a complete human brain inside a computer. Not just a program that acts like a human, like a chatbot or ChatGPT, but a complete digital simulation of the neural networks, simulating every single neuron and synapse.
So if they succeed, you'd have a file on a computer that thinks, feels, and has consciousness.
That is the claim. The director of the project has suggested that within a decade or two, we could have an artificial human brain that talks and behaves just like a human because it's built on the same architecture.
And this raises the hard drive scenario. If I can upload my brain to a computer.
If you could back up your brain to a portable hard drive and run it on your laptop, is that laptop you?
I don't know.
If it thinks it's you, feels your emotions, remembers your first kiss, is it a person? If you delete the file, is it murder?
And if it's on a computer, it's not bound by the slow speed of neurons. It can process information 1,000,000 times faster than my biological brain. It could copy itself 1,000 times.
Exactly. If life can break out of the organic realm, out of the small world of proteins and DNA, and into the vastness of the inorganic realm of data, the possibilities are beyond our imagination.
Which brings us to the term physicists use for this kind of event horizon, the singularity.
Part 5. The singularity. I've heard this term thrown around a lot in tech circles. Usually it just means the moment AI gets smarter than us.
That's the popular shorthand definition, but the term comes from astrophysics, from the study of black holes.
Right. The singularity is the point at the center of a black hole where gravity is so intense that the known laws of nature, of physics, simply do not exist anymore. Physics breaks down. Time breaks down. We cannot predict what happens past the event horizon because our models don't work there.
So when we apply that to history,
It means we are approaching a point where the known laws of history, society, and biology collapse. Concepts like me, you, male, female, love, hate, these concepts have meaning because of our biology.
we love because we are mammals who need to bond to raise our young. We fear death because we are biological beings programmed to survive.
Exactly. If we change that biology or if we leave it behind for silicon, those concepts might become completely irrelevant.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that, a world without individuals or emotions as we know them.
It's incomprehensible by definition. Just like a Neanderthal could not possibly understand the New York Stock Exchange or a Shakespeare sonnet. They just didn't have the mental hardware for it. Our future successors might be looking back at us with the same level of disconnect.
And this brings up the Frankenstein prophecy, Mary Shelley's story. We usually interpret that as a warning. Don't play God, or your creation will turn on you and kill you.
Right. The monster rampages and destroys its creator. But Harari argues that we tell the story that way to comfort ourselves. We like the idea that the monster is violent and flawed because it implies that we are better. It implies that you cannot perfect the human spirit, and any attempt to do so will result in a monstrosity.
We want to believe that we are the pinnacle of creation.
We do, but the real fear isn't that they'll be monsters.
No.
The real fear is that they will be better than us. The source suggests the Frankenstein myth is actually about our deep-seated fear of being replaced. The fact is, our spirits, our emotions, our cognitive abilities are products of our biology. If we can engineer the body, we can engineer the spirit.
So a future Dr. Frankenstein might create beings that look at us as condescendingly as we look at Neanderthals.
Not with hatred, but with a kind of pity or indifference.
That is a humbling thought. We assume we are the end of the line. But we might just be a stepping stone. And before we even get to that replacement stage, there is a very real danger in the transition period, the era of inequality.
This is a pressing concern for the very near future. Throughout history, the rich and powerful have always claimed to be better than the poor. Blue blood, noble birth, superior breeding.
But it was mostly a story they told themselves. A baby duke and a baby peasant were biologically pretty much the same. If you swapped them at birth, the peasant could grow up to be just as smart and capable as the duke.
Exactly. But soon, for the first time in history, that lie might become an objective biological reality. Medicine is shifting. In the 20th century, the great medical advances were mass treatments, vaccines, antibiotics. They helped everyone. They were the great equalizers.
But now we're moving toward personalized medicine, DNA treatments, gene therapy.
And enhancement. If new treatments can improve memory or extend life or boost intelligence, and if those treatments are incredibly expensive,
Then the rich really will be smarter, stronger, and longer lived than the poor.
we could see the emergence of a biological caste system, a race of superhumans and a mass of useless standard sapiens. It would shatter the modern liberal belief in equality. How can you argue for political equality when the biological reality is vastly unequal? If the rich person is literally a different superior species.
That is terrifying. It's like the movie Gattaca, but on a global scale. So the obvious question is, can we stop it? Can we just pull the plug on this research? Can the government just ban it all?
And this leads us to our final section, the Gilgamesh Project.
Gilgamesh. the ancient Sumerian hero who went on a quest to defeat death.
Correct. The source argues that modern science, at its core, is essentially the Gilgamesh Project. The ultimate goal isn't just knowledge for its own sake, it's power. Specifically, the power to defeat aging and death, to become immortal.
And the reason we can't stop it is because it's always sold to us as something good, something therapeutic.
Precisely. This is the justification trap. If you ask scientists why they are developing brain-computer interfaces, they won't say to create a race of cyborg telepaths.
No, they'll say it's to cure Alzheimer's or to help paralyzed people walk again.
And who can argue with that? It's a noble goal. If you try to ban genetic engineering, you are arguing against curing cancer. You're arguing against saving children from genetic diseases. But once a technology exists to fix a broken memory in an Alzheimer's patient, that exact same technology can be used to upgrade the memory of a healthy person.
It's a package deal. You can't have the cure without the enhancement. Dr. Frankenstein is piggybacking on the shoulders of Gilgamesh.
And since we will never stop trying to cure death and disease, we will likely never stop the march toward the singularity. It feels like an unstoppable train.
So where is this train going? The source describes a truly alien future.
Yes. And it warns against what you can call the Star Trek fallacy. In most sci-fi, aliens or future humans are usually just us with better gadgets and maybe some funny foreheads. Captain Kirk still falls in love, he gets angry, he feels sad.
They're emotionally relatable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But real future beings, engineered beings, might not have those emotions at all.
They might have no sexuality, they might have no anger, or they might have emotional states that are as unimaginable to us as the color red is to a person born blind.
We simply cannot comprehend the psychology of a being that can share thoughts instantly or live for 1,000 years.
It really puts our current struggles in perspective. We worry about the economy or politics, but in the grand scheme of things, Homo sapiens is just a fleeting moment.
The afterword of the text sums this up beautifully and I think tragically. It calls us the animal that became a god.
70,000 years ago, we were just another animal hiding in a corner of Africa, unimportant. Now, we are the masters of the planet.
We have acquired divine abilities, the power of creation and the power of destruction. We are on the verge of conquering death and achieving eternal youth. But the tragedy is, are we any happier?
The text argues pretty strongly, no, we have steamships and space shuttles, but we don't know where we are going. We are more powerful than ever, but we are also lonely and anxious.
And irresponsible. We are self-made gods, accountable to no one. We wreak havoc on the ecosystem and other animals, seeking our own comfort and amusement, but we never seem to find satisfaction.
It's a heavy realization. We are, and I'm quoting here, dissatisfied and irresponsible gods who don't know what they want.
And that leads to the final, most provocative question of the entire deep dive.
We're moving from being shaped by nature to shaping nature ourselves. We can design our bodies. Soon, we might be able to design our minds. We can engineer our own desires.
If you can take a pill or tweak a gene to make yourself happy or ambitious or content, then the question, what do you want to become, is almost secondary. Because you can just change what you want to become.
So the real question, the one that should keep you up at night, is this.
What do we want to want?
That is going to sit with me for a while. What do we want to want? Because if we get that answer wrong, we might engineer ourselves into a corner we can never escape. A kind of self-made heaven that's actually a hell.
The history of the future is still being written. But for the first time, the pen is now firmly in our hands.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the end of Homo sapiens. It's been a mind-bending hour.
Always a pleasure to explore the edge of the unknown.
Take care, everyone. And maybe look at that rabbit in your backyard a little differently today.